The future is a reflection of the present, and it cannot be changed. Have you ever wondered what brilliant minds like Nikola Tesla or Ada Lovelace dreamed about? What if their greatest breakthroughs, from the power grid to the first computer program, were sparked by their subconscious during those quiet pre-dawn hours? Prepare to drift off as we explore the surprising ways sleep, or even a lack of it, fueled humanity's most revolutionary innovators. Tonight, we're not just telling a story, we're unlocking a secret history of invention. Discover how figures who literally shaped our world, from the Industrial Revolution's titans to the architects of our digital age, found their revolutionary ideas not in bustling labs, but in the depths of their sleep. You'll never think about power naps the same way again. Imagine laying your head down tonight, knowing that the very act of sleep could be the birthplace of your next big idea. We're about to explore the incredible truth behind humanity's greatest leaps, how pioneering innovators from Da Vinci to Steve Jobs tapped into the mysteries of their minds during their nocturnal journeys. Get ready to embark on a restful exploration of genius. Steve Jobs, the intuitive design principle. Setting the scene. Palo Alto, California, late 1970s, early 1980s. Jobs is driven by an obsessive, almost spiritual need to merge cutting-edge technology with minimalist, intuitive design. His mind is constantly churning, not over technical specifications, but over the experience of the user. He is wrestling with the interface for the early Apple computers. How can a complex machine be made accessible and beautiful? His famously demanding work schedule often included walking for hours to clear his mind, followed by periods of intense, singular focus. While Jobs rarely spoke of traditional dreams, his creative process relied heavily on deep meditation and a state of intense, almost trance-like visualization. Jobs' philosophy that design is not just what it looks and feels like, design is how it works, was an intuitive leap derived from a state of intense, focused contemplation that mirrored the hypnagogic state. He believed in trusting the gut, the subconscious resolution of a problem that often manifested as a complete, non-verbal understanding of the final product. The key decisions that defined Apple, the adoption of the graphical user interface, or GUI, and the mouse after his visit to Xerox PARC, the clean lines of the iMac, or the seamless functionality of the iPod, were not arrived at through market research or iterative testing, but through a sudden, holistic vision of what the perfect user experience would be. These moments of complete intuitive clarity were his personal equivalent of the dream breakthrough, representing the unconscious mind delivering a fully integrated design solution. What was learned? Moments of intense contemplation and focused visualization, akin to a waking dream state, are the source of true intuitive leaps and holistic design solutions. A thought for sleep. Let go of the details tonight and instead visualize the finished result. Trust that your inner sense of perfect knows the path to the solution. Larry Page and Sergey Brin, the Google search ranking algorithm. Setting the scene. Stanford University, 1996. The atmosphere in the computer science department is a chaotic buzz of late-night coding in fast food wrappers. Larry Page and Sergey Brin, graduate students, are trying to tame the rapidly expanding World Wide Web. Early search engines were ineffective. often ranking pages based simply on how many times a keyword appeared. This system was failing. Page and Brin are staring at monitors, debating how to assign a true measure of importance to a web page, much like academic papers are ranked by citations. The problem is a massive theoretical leap that needs a simple, elegant mechanism. The core concept of using link structures to rank web pages, which became known as PageRank, was the crucial idea behind Google. The fundamental insight that the value of a page should be determined by the number and quality of other important pages linking to it was one that Page has described as a sudden, almost blinding flash of realization. He was contemplating how the web could be mapped like a graph of citations. This moment of sudden clarity was, as is common, the product of sustained, intense focus, followed by a necessary rest or mental break, where the subconscious took the academic citation model and applied it perfectly to the topology of the internet, creating the algorithm that organized the digital world. What was learned? Intense focus, followed by a release of mental pressure, allows the subconscious to perform analogical leaps, connecting an old effective model, academic citations, to a brand new problem, web organization. A thought for sleep. You have absorbed the problem. Now, rest. Let your mind take the concepts you wrestled with today and connect them in a new, revolutionary way. Dr. Barbara McClintock. Jumping genes, transposons. Setting the scene. Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory, New York, 1940s. Dr. Barbara McClintock, a brilliant cytogeneticist, is examining corn chromosomes under a microscope. Her peers, operating under the established belief that genes occupy fixed positions, dismiss her increasingly strange and complex findings. She has observed patterns of color change in corn kernels that defy the rules of Mendelian inheritance, suggesting that genetic elements are moving or jumping on the chromosome. The data is overwhelming. The problem is intellectually revolutionary, and her conscious mind struggles to build a model that supports her observations. For years, McClintock struggled to convince the scientific community of her theory of mobile genetic elements, or transposons. The complexity of the chromosomal rearrangements was baffling. She eventually found the clarity she needed in a moment of intellectual surrender. She described a period of extreme focus where she knew the material better than she knew her own hands, followed by a period of complete mental quiet. The resolution, the mechanism by which the genes jumped, and the logical sequence of their movement came to her suddenly, holistically, and fully formed. This breakthrough, which earned her a Nobel Prize decades later, was a vision of the chromosome acting as a unified, fluid entity, a complete, intuitive grasp of the entire system delivered by her unconscious after intense intellectual preparation. What was learned? Deep immersion in a complex problem primes the unconscious mind to deliver a sudden, holistic, and completely accurate visual understanding of an entire complex scientific system. A thought for sleep. You have gathered the data. Now release the control. Allow your deepest mind to build the perfect interconnected model that your eyes cannot yet see. Nikola Tesla, the rotating magnetic field. Setting the scene. Paris, 1882. The gas lights of the city cast long, sputtering shadows onto the cobblestone streets outside the Continental Edison Company workshop. Inside, the young, fiercely driven Nikola Tesla leans over a drafting table littered with failed DC motor designs. The air is thick with the smell of oil and sweat. He is haunted by the inherent inefficiency of the current DC power system, a system that demanded power stations every few blocks. Tesla knows a better way exists, a way to harness the rhythmic pulse of alternating current, AC. But the practical mechanics of building a commutatorless AC motor remain a frustrating knot in his mind. He has been up for days, the problem grinding against his concentration like a dull gear, forcing him toward a necessary, yet dreaded, walk. The famous story of Tesla walking in a park, reciting poetry, when the vision for the alternating current AC motor, specifically the principle of the rotating magnetic field, flashed into his mind, fully formed. He didn't just see a diagram, he saw the actual machine spinning perfectly. While not strictly a dream, Tesla often attributed his greatest ideas to moments of intense quiet and visualization, blurring the lines between waking thought and a dreamlike state of mind, typically experienced after periods of intense work and minimal sleep. This sudden, comprehensive visualization, akin to a waking dream, showed him the blueprint for the entire modern power system, a moment he described as the whole mechanism running in front of him, as solid and real as the bench he sat on. What was learned? The power of the subconscious mind to organize chaos into a perfect, fully formed solution, often manifesting through intense visualization after a period of prolonged mental effort. A thought for sleep. Let your mind wander tonight, knowing that sometimes the greatest breakthroughs arrive not when you are forcing them, but when you allow yourself a quiet, imaginative break. Albert Einstein, The Theory of Relativity and the Cows. Setting the scene. Bern, Switzerland, 1905. Albert Einstein, a young, anonymous patent clerk, is staring out the window of his office, his official duties momentarily forgotten. His mind is consumed by the contradictions between the established physics of Isaac Newton and the new laws of electromagnetism defined by James Clerk Maxwell. Specifically, he is struggling with the concept of the speed of light. If it is truly constant, how must space and time change for different observers? He is performing complex thought experiments, Gedanken experiments, in his head, trying to visualize a scenario that resolves the conflict, but the answer remains murky and counterintuitive. While working on the constancy of the speed of light, Einstein reportedly had a key revelation in a vivid, almost dreamlike moment of visualization. He pictured himself riding on a beam of light, looking back at the familiar world below. In this visualization, he saw cows grazing in a pasture. As he sped away on the light beam, he realized the cow furthest from him seemed to be moving in slow motion, frozen in time, while the light from it took longer to reach him. This simple yet profound visualization of relative speed and the distortion of time was a critical intuitive leap that contributed directly to the development of the special theory of relativity, proving that the deepest physics can be revealed through simple, powerful internal imagery cultivated by intense focus in moments of creative release. What was learned? The subconscious transforms abstract scientific problems into simple, visual thought experiments that make counterintuitive concepts suddenly comprehensible. A thought for sleep. Picture the most challenging idea you hold in your mind. Tonight, let your unconscious mind place you inside that idea, allowing the laws of the universe to simplify for you. René Descartes, The Foundations of Analytical Geometry. Setting the scene. Neuburg, Germany, November 1619. The world outside is cold, but Descartes, a young philosopher and soldier, is locked inside a small stove-heated room, enjoying the internal warmth. He has spent the day intensely contemplating a vast, revolutionary idea: how to unify all known knowledge, philosophy, physics, and mathematics under a single certain framework based on pure reason. He believes the secret must be mathematical. He lies down for the night, his mind reeling from the day's intellectual exertion, the quest for certainty demanding a logical resolution. In 1619, while stationed as a soldier, Descartes spent a day contemplating his new philosophical method. That night, he had 3 intense, interconnected dreams that he interpreted not just as an idea, but as divine confirmation that he should dedicate his life to a wonderful science. The clarity provided by these dreams was monumental. They led him to realize that algebraic equations could perfectly describe geometric shapes. This insight allowed Descartes to unify algebra and geometry, establishing the basis for analytical geometry and the Cartesian coordinate system, which is still fundamental to all modern science and engineering. What was learned? Dreams can provide a profound, unifying framework linking disparate fields of knowledge, like algebra and geometry, into a single, elegant system. A thought for sleep. Rest now and allow your deepest, most ambitious questions to be answered by the certainty and structure of your sleeping mind. Madam C.J. Walker, Sarah Breedlove. The Walker System. Setting the scene. Denver, Colorado, early 1900s. Sarah Breedlove, a washerwoman struggling with severe scalp and hair issues, is standing over a hot tub of water, scrubbing clothes for other families. The social and economic realities for Black women demand a solution for hair care that is both effective and accessible, yet every potion she has mixed, every herb and oil has failed. The problem is a deep personal pain driven by her own hair loss and the desire for dignity for herself and her community. Exhausted from the unrelenting labor of her day, she seeks sleep, her mind desperately seeking a remedy. After years of personal struggle and experimentation, Sarah Breedlove, who would become Madam C.J. Walker, reported having a crucial dream. She said a big black man appeared to her in a dream and told her what to mix for her hair. The result was that I got up and I went to work on my remedy, she recounted. This remedy involved specific ingredients and an application process, the combination of a specialized scalp treatment and a method of heat application that resolved her long-standing problem. This vision, whether literal or a subconscious synthesis of all her failed experiments, delivered the complete formula for the Walker system, which built her hair care empire and established her as America's first female self-made millionaire. What was learned? The subconscious mind can synthesize years of trial and error experience into a precise, actionable formula, often presenting the solution through symbolic or personalized guidance. A thought for sleep. Lay down your burdens tonight. The answer you seek is not outside you. It is waiting to be synthesized from the wisdom you have already gained. Stephen King, Misery. Setting the scene. Mid-1980s, high above the Atlantic Ocean. Stephen King is seated on a transcontinental flight, the cabin dimly lit for the night crossing. He's wrestling with a novel idea, exploring the dark side of fame and the sometimes terrifying, possessive nature of a fanatic fan base. The abstract theme is there, but the plot mechanism, the engine of the terror, is missing. He cannot figure out how to isolate the writer and create the unbearable, claustrophobic dread necessary for a horror novel. He puts his head back, seeking a brief respite from the altitude and the creative strain, drifting into that liminal state between sleep and consciousness. King once said he gets his best ideas while driving, or in that fuzzy time between waking and sleeping. The core concept for Misery, a famous romance writer, Paul Sheldon, rescued and then held captive and tortured by his #1 fan, Annie Wilkes, came to him during that transcontinental flight. He drifted off, and the entire premise of the novel presented itself, fully formed with the character of Annie and the horrific scenario. He described it as the entire story springing up in his head in one piece, a classic example of a complex, character-driven narrative blooming in the transitional state of consciousness, resolving all his plot difficulties in an instant. What was learned? The liminal state of pre-sleep, hypnagogia, is highly effective for synthesizing complex narrative elements, resolving plot difficulties, and developing intense character concepts. A thought for sleep. When you feel the pull of sleep, give your mind permission to play out the scenarios you've been working on. The solution to your story may arrive before you even truly fall asleep. Paul McCartney, The Melody of Yesterday. Setting the scene. Wimpole Street, Attic Flat, London, 1964. The Beatles are a global phenomenon, and Paul McCartney is sleeping in the attic of his then-girlfriend's family home. The pace of touring, writing, and recording is relentless. He collapses into bed, his mind typically buzzing with rhythms and lyrics. But this morning, he wakes with a completely unfamiliar sound echoing in his head, a simple, haunting, melancholic melody. It feels ancient, complete, and utterly beautiful, played out in his mind on a single, clean acoustic guitar. The tune is so perfectly formed and unlike anything the Beatles had ever done that his immediate conscious thought is one of guilt. He must have stolen it. Paul McCartney woke up one morning with a fully formed melody playing in his head. He was so convinced he had heard it somewhere before, a piece of forgotten classical music or an old standard, that he spent weeks asking everyone, from his bandmates to music producers, if they recognized his new tune. After confirming it was entirely original, he wrote temporary lyrics, calling it Scrambled Eggs, before finally penning the now famous words, Yesterday, a song born entirely from his subconscious, which went on to become one of the most successful and most covered songs in music history. He famously referred to it as his dream song. What was learned? The subconscious mind is a powerful creative engine, capable of generating entirely original artistic works, such as melodies, fully formed during deep sleep. A thought for sleep. Let the day's noise fade and listen closely to the quiet. You may wake to find a perfect, unsolicited gift waiting for you in the morning's light. Jane Goodall, Understanding Primate Behavior. Setting the scene. Gombe Stream, Tanzania, early 1960s. Jane Goodall is living among the wild chimpanzees, conducting groundbreaking field research. She is trying to break through the conventional scientific barrier that insists animals act purely on instinct, not emotion. The chimps remain wary, her attempts to gain their trust slow and often frustrating. She is battling her own fatigue, the isolation, and the immense mental labor required to patiently observe and record every tiny detail of their complex social lives. She retires to her small tent, the sounds of the jungle surrounding her, her mind still replaying the day's observations. Goodall's key breakthrough, realizing that chimpanzees make and use tools, possess distinct personalities, and experience complex emotions, was an intuitive leap born from an empathetic connection cultivated during hours of intense, silent observation. While not a single dramatic dream, her method required a nightly period of deep mental processing, where the day's chaotic data, the subtle glances, the territorial disputes, the moments of affection, were assimilated by her unconscious mind. It was often upon waking that she would pen the radical, non-traditional interpretations that revolutionized primatology. The clear recognition of the individual personality of a chimp she named David Greybeard, a realization that emerged from the subconscious sorting of countless small interactions into a cohesive, human-like identity. What was learned? Sustained, patient observation, followed by deep rest, allows the subconscious to process complex data into profound, empathetic insights, bridging the gap between human and animal understanding. A thought for sleep. Tonight, allow the patterns and observations of your day to settle. The most profound truths are often revealed when the mind stops analyzing and simply sees. Leonardo da Vinci, The Flying Machine, Ornithopter. Setting the scene, Milan, late 15th century. Leonardo da Vinci's workshop is a dizzying array of sketches, anatomical drawings, and experimental devices. He is obsessed with flight. His notebooks are filled with meticulous studies of bird anatomy and wing mechanics. Yet the leap from observation to functional human engineering remains maddeningly elusive. The sheer weight and required power for a man to flap mechanical wings is a problem of complex linkages, gears, and structural strength. Da Vinci, known for his unique sleep cycle, embraces brief periods of rest throughout the day, using these sharp breaks to clear his mind from the complexity of the problem. Da Vinci was a proponent of polyphasic sleep, taking multiple short naps, often only 15 to 20 minutes, throughout the day. He used these hypnagogic states, the transition from wakefulness to sleep, to spark creativity in problem solving. It was during these intense, brief rests, where the brain is highly receptive to associative thinking, that the complex linkages for the ornithopter often manifested. While his designs were based on meticulous study, his sketchbooks suggest moments of sudden, elegant insight, the resolution of a difficult joint or gearing system, attributed to the mental clarity achieved during or immediately after these sharp, restful breaks, allowing his unconscious mind to construct the impossible machine. What was learned? Strategic short rests can harness the hypnagogic state, providing rapid, high-impact cognitive breaks perfect for solving intricate mechanical or engineering problems. A thought for sleep.
Don't fear the complexity of your current challenge. A brief, deep rest can reset your focus, allowing the elegant solution to manifest as a sudden, clear thought.
Auguste Kekulé, the benzene ring structure. Setting the scene. Ghent, Belgium, 1862. Friedrich August Kekulé von Stradonitz, a chemist, is huddled by his fireplace. The only light comes from the flickering flames, casting dancing shadows across his papers covered in molecular diagrams. He has been trying to solve the riddle of benzene, C6H6, for months. Based on elemental valencies, it should be a long, open-chain molecule, but benzene's extraordinary chemical stability suggests an elegant, uniform structure. He keeps drawing different chains, different linear combinations, but nothing works. Exhausted and staring into the embers, he finds himself nodding off, slipping into a moment of dozing contemplation. The chemist was attempting to determine the molecular structure of benzene, C6H6. One evening, he dozed off by the fire and dreamed of tiny atoms flitting about. In his half-sleep, the atoms rearranged themselves into long lines, twisting and writhing like snakes. Suddenly, one of the snakes grabbed its own tail in its mouth, forming a perfect circle, the ancient symbol known as the Ouroboros. This image immediately gave him the breakthrough idea. The benzene molecule was not an open chain, but a closed hexagonal ring structure. This dream solved a century-old problem, provided the foundation for aromatic chemistry, and became the cornerstone of modern organic chemistry. What was learned? The hypnagogic state often utilizes ancient archetypes or visual metaphors, like the snake biting its tail, to convey complex scientific truths in a simple, memorable image. A thought for sleep. As you close your eyes, welcome the symbolic language of your dreams. Your unconscious mind speaks in pictures. Let them tell you what you need to know. Elias Howe, the lock-stitch sewing machine. Setting the scene. Cambridge, Massachusetts, 1844. Elias Howe, a struggling machinist, is laboring in a dimly lit, small workshop. The sounds of his hammer striking metal echo frustratingly as he works on yet another failed prototype of a mechanical sewing machine. Early models required the needle to push the thread entirely through the fabric, making the return motion cumbersome and slow, no faster than sewing by hand. Howe, nearly destitute and plagued by self-doubt, is wrestling with this mechanical nightmare. He knows the secret is the stitch itself, but his mind remains locked on the traditional design of a needle with the eye at the blunt end. He goes to sleep, his unconscious mind taking over the problem. Early attempts at a sewing machine failed because the needle pushed the thread all the way through, requiring the cloth to be returned. Howe dreamed he was captured by a tribe of savages who gave him 24 hours to invent a functional sewing machine or die. In the dream, as the savages prepared for his execution, he noticed their spears had an unexpected detail: a hole drilled near the sharp tip. This bizarre, terrifying vision provided the literal breakthrough. Upon waking, he realized the solution was placing the thread hole near the point of the needle, inventing the lock-stitch mechanism. This simple reversal of needle design, a detail that his conscious mind had overlooked for years, was the key that launched the modern garment industry. What was learned? Dreams can reframe a long-standing problem by presenting familiar objects like a needle in a new, often symbolic context, allowing the sleeper to spot a crucial, overlooked detail. A thought for sleep. The small details you missed today might be illuminated in a strange, unexpected way tonight.
Allow your mind the freedom to look at things backwards.
Dmitri Mendeleev, The Periodic Table. Setting the scene, St. Petersburg, 1869. The winter air is biting even indoors. Dmitri Mendeleev, a professor of chemistry, is barricaded in his study, surrounded by hundreds of handwritten note cards. Each card represents one of the 63 known elements, detailing its atomic weight, valence, and physical properties. He's been working on his definitive textbook, Principles of Chemistry, but the central chapter, the organization of the elements, is a disaster. He has tried every known permutation, moving the cards from table to floor, searching for the invisible numerical harmony that he is certain must govern the universe's building blocks. After 3 days without proper rest, fueled only by stale black coffee, his eyelids feel like sandpaper. He finally collapses onto his couch, the scattered elements a colorful, frustrating chaos surrounding him. Mendeleev famously struggled to organize the elements by atomic weight in a coherent system. Exhausted from 3 days of continuous work, he finally fell asleep. He reported later that he saw a table where all the elements fell into place as required. Awakening, I immediately wrote it down on a piece of paper. This dream provided the structure for the modern periodic table, allowing him to leave intentional gaps and predict the precise existence and properties of elements yet to be discovered, such as gallium and germanium, thereby revolutionizing chemistry and solidifying his legacy. What was learned? The brain uses the deep organizational processes of sleep to find order in complexity, literally assembling the elements of a problem into a cohesive, patterned solution. A thought for sleep. Trust that the facts and challenges you wrestled with today are being quietly sorted and organized by your sleeping mind, waiting to be revealed in the morning.
Martha Graham, The Technique and Choreography of Modern Dance. Setting the scene, New York City, 1930s. The city is alive with motion, but Martha Graham is searching for a new language for the American body, one that speaks of internal struggle, contraction and release, moving beyond the classical ballet tradition. She is exhausted from teaching and endless experimentation, constantly refining the revolutionary Graham technique in her mind and body. The movements feel visceral, but the thematic structure for a new major piece, one that will define her career, is eluding her. She seeks stillness after a physically and mentally demanding day. The genesis of many of Graham's most iconic works, particularly Lamentation and Appalachian Spring, came not from conscious planning, but from the deep, intuitive resolution of her physical and emotional struggles during sleep. She believed the body held memory and that the unconscious mind was the source of true expression. Appalachian Spring, a celebration of the American pioneer spirit, solidified into a cohesive choreographic whole during a period of intense mental focus, followed by necessary repose. Graham's dream was the full, sequential realization of the emotional arc and the physical vocabulary, the movements of contraction and release falling into an inevitable narrative order that her conscious mind had wrestled with for weeks. Her rest allowed her deeply internalized concepts of modern dance to emerge as a complete, unified vision. What was learned? The unconscious body uses sleep to choreograph physical and emotional concepts, translating internalized struggles into a complete, revolutionary artistic language. A thought for sleep. Let your body rest tonight, knowing that the most eloquent messages in movements
are often prepared in the deepest, quietest parts of your mind.
Thomas Edison, The Power of Naps and Dozing. Setting the scene. Menlo Park, New Jersey, late 1870s. The air in Thomas Edison's laboratory is perpetually charged with energy and fatigue. He and his team are in the midst of the most frustrating trial and error process, finding a viable filament for the incandescent light bulb. They have tested countless materials, platinum, cotton, paper, only to see them fail. Edison, demanding relentless work from his staff and himself, understands that pure exhaustion hinders creativity. When facing a dead end, he turns to a unique, highly controlled form of rest. Edison was famously proud of his minimal sleep schedule, but he was a master of the power nap, specifically designed to harness the hypnagogic state. He would often sit in his chair, holding steel ball bearings in his hands over metal plates placed on the floor. As he drifted off into the hypnagogic state, the moment between wakefulness and sleep, when the brain is most creative and associative, his muscles would relax, the balls would drop onto the plates with a clang, and the noise would instantly wake him. He believed this momentary, lucid state was a gateway to solving difficult technical problems, enabling him to quickly resolve issues of material science and invention, leading directly to the successful design of the functional light bulb and phonograph. What was learned? Controlled, short rests that leverage the hypnagogic state can provide rapid access to the subconscious's problem-solving mechanisms, offering quick technical solutions. A thought for sleep. Just a moment of true mental release can be enough. Close your eyes, let go of the problem, and listen for the clarity that comes just before the quiet.